Each year, it's our tradition to recognize a change maker in developmental disabilities with the Shriver Award. The award was named for Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who is a pioneer in the worldwide struggle for the rights and acceptance of people with intellectual disabilities. She founded the Special Olympics, and in the late 50s and 60s, Eunice Shriver saw little justice in the way that people with intellectual disabilities were treated. She saw them as excluded and placed in institutions, yet she knew they had many talents and gifts to offer. This year's recipient of the Shriver Award goes to someone who also has recognized a group of people, non-speaking autistic people and AAC users who have many talents and gifts to offer that are not being recognized. I first saw and met Dr. Peña's work at a conference that she put on, and it was the most incredible experience to be in a university auditorium with hundreds of non-speaking autistics for a conference that all the talks were given by non-speaking people who were AAC users, and everybody was so comfortable. It just completely changed the view of what was possible. And she has helped so many people who started off in moderate to severe special education classes, get access to communication, get access to an education, get a diploma, and go on to college. And she has, at first, there were a few wonderful role models that my child never had, role models living a life that my daughter would want, and now we have many. And I think the last time I looked at the list, we had about 50 colleges that had admitted and supported non-speaking autistic people to enter their colleges and take coursework and get degrees. So incredible work and a great debt of gratitude that we have for you, Dr. Peña. Dr. Peña is the program director and professor of the Educational Leadership Doctoral program at Cal Lutheran University. Her scholarship and advocacy in the autism field began when her son, Diego, was diagnosed with autism in 2010. Since then, she's served on the NIH Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee and serves on a number of nonprofit boards to support autistic students and adults. She's an award-winning has award-winning research that's focused on the themes of inclusion in education, higher education transition, and communication access for minimally speaking students. Her edited books, Communication Alternatives in Autism, and Leaders Around Me, feature prominent autistic individuals who advocate for communication and inclusion rights. Since 2016, Dr. Peña co-founded and serves as the director of the Autism and Communication Center. AAC is a university center that provides community-based resources to promote educational and community inclusion of non-speaking and minimally speaking autistic individuals. Dr. Peña's scholarship and her service to the autistic community has reached international audiences. Today, she is joined by Emma Cladis, a junior majoring in English at Vanguard University in Costa Mesa, California. She is autistic and communicates primarily by typing. Emma loves advocating for others like herself and has presented at conferences and authored books and videos describing her journey. She contributed an autobiographical chapter in the Leaders Around Me Autobiographies of Autistics people who type, point, and spell, and is published in journals including Autism in Adulthood, Vanguard University's Literary Journal, and she has contributed to the popular press, including an article in Autism Parenting magazine. Emma's passion for film and writing has brought her to a place of wanting to be a screenwriter, and she's written several screenplays. For more information about Emma, you can go to hopeneverending.com. So we welcome you both today to present the Shriver Lecture.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kripke. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I am honored to be here with Emma, and we are both really excited to speak and share about the work that we've done together. I'm going to just get the disclosure slide out of the way, which is that we have no disclosures to report, and then we'll move on. So I will turn it over to Emma for her to say a few words.
It is an honor to be here with Dr. Pena and share in her story and celebrate her career of accomplishments for the autistic non-speaking community. As you hear this presentation, I hope it will open and change hearts and minds. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much. This is always a pleasure to co-present with leaders like you. And I want to share a little bit about, I know Dr. Kripke gave a lot of information about my professional background, but my heart is, and my heart in this work is really stemming from me being a mom to my son, Diego. Although I am a professor and I'm the director of the Autism and Communication Center, the work that I do today is really because of my experiences as Diego's mom. And when he was diagnosed with autism in 2010, my whole life changed. And not only in terms of personally, but my whole research agenda changed because I wanted to understand. Back then, there were really only a few articles out there in the journals about whether or not autistics do go to college. And my degree, my PhD is in higher education. So I was very curious about this. And there was really not a lot out there. And then that's the reason I decided to do research in this area. And so this was a pivotal moment in my career. It shifted my whole trajectory of where I focused my advocacy work from originally advocating for Latinx and African-American Black students in college and their access to resources and supports on campus, but then shifting that to disability and autism in particular. So I share that because it's really the work that I do is driven by something that was a significant life experience. And I have this little emoji here. And I just want you to reflect out in the audience, you know, have you ever had a significant life experience that changed the direction of your career or your research or the way that you approach your, whether you're a practitioner, your clients, your patients, your students? How many of you have careers or vocations that overlap with your personal and professional life? I think that that's a calling for us, and it's something that has really, it's a labor of love, right? So just that work is important, and I want to validate that piece. So here's Diego when he was much younger, and what we discovered after his diagnosis is that he had a very difficult time with developing his speech. And despite him being about 3 years old, getting frustrated in traditional therapy like ABA, his therapists were not interested at that time in exploring augmentative alternative communication. I would ask about it, and the thinking back then, at least from the people around us in terms of the professionals, was that if you try to work on PECS, which is the picture exchange communication system, or a symbol-based system like you see here in the photos on the slides, if you focused on those, that would inhibit speech production, which we know now that is false. The research shows that that's actually not the case, and it can help children develop speech and language as they explore augmentative alternative communication. But I pressed forward, I kept asking for it, I persisted on that, and I'm really happy I did, because Diego never eventually, he is truly a non-speaking person. He has no speech. He can make sounds and vocalizations, but imagine not having a system like this, right? I mean, here he is, he's about 4 or 5 years old here in this photo, asking for green ice cream. And this is telling me as a parent, I want mint sherbet, I think it was at the time. And so, Another instance here is he couldn't find a book, and I had no idea what he was looking for. And he found the symbols and would create these really great sentences or phrases using symbols. And he was looking for a Winnie the Pooh ABC book. And that was just so amazing to me that he could tell me and communicate at 5 or 6 years old when he put this down. Without this, folks were assuming that, I mean, Diego literally almost received a diagnosis of mental retardation at the time. That was the diagnosis they wanted to give him. So I fought really hard against that, and I knew there was so much more there for him. Oops, I skipped a slide. Okay, there we go. So that was the parent side of things. And meanwhile, what many of you might already know, or probably most of you know, is that the autism diagnosis rates were soaring. This is the state of California, just to show you an example of 3,000 cases of autism back in 1989. And the most recent data that I could pull up was from 2023, where we find that nearly 180,000 cases of autism have been identified in California. And this is the caseload for DDS. But what we see here is a 6,000% increase. And we know today that 1 in 36 children are being diagnosed with autism. So the picture, the landscape of our work as educators, professionals, healthcare providers is shifting and changing as we see more and more folks being diagnosed on the spectrum. And with that, what we know is that about 1/3 of folks on the spectrum or autistic people, they cannot use speech in an effective way to communicate. And even after years of speech interventions, about 1/3 of the folks or individuals, autistic individuals, are considered non-speaking or minimally speaking. And that has led to unfortunate outcomes in terms of not having access to general education and inclusion, not having access to community inclusion. And more recently, we know that a lot of our assumptions about intelligence were in fact false, or we were underestimating people who did not have speech. We have more research now, and more recently, this is one example in the second bullet point, that despite minimally speaking autistics being underestimated in terms of their language, research shows that non-speaking autistic people do acquire aspects of literacy regardless of their speech proficiency. So as a parent, I was like, we must have high expectations for my son Diego and for Emma and for everybody else. We must put support systems in place so that they can access communication, they can use it in schools and community settings. So I kept going with this, and we discovered a method that I know Emma uses, Diego uses now, which uses a letter board where a communication partner supports the person to communicate by pointing to letters on a letter board. These are two versions of a letter board that you might see. The one on the left is very common. And there are more and more practitioners out there now, speech therapists, educators, communication partners who are trained now to use letter boards, which has really provided a lot more access for students to be included in general education and go to college. And that has happened really within the last 10 years, I would say. So I'm really proud of one of the things that Diego did do, because he has been included since he was in preschool. He did participate in high-level academics with a support person one-on-one, and he still to this day is a fully included junior in high school. When he was 9 years old, he wrote this book in 2nd grade, Anatomy of Autism. And the teacher came up to me and said, "You must read this book," because I hadn't read it yet. And she said, "And you must publish this book." So we did those two things. And I want to say that the book has sold over 6,000 to 7,000 copies. It did really well on Amazon. And he talks about what it's like to have autism, what it's like to have apraxia. He says here, "I have experienced both judgment and freedom. When I was judged, my wings were bound by the low expectations, and I could not succeed. Now that I am free to be autistic, I soar." So even though folks around him recognize the challenges he experiences, he still has high levels of expectation and support to help him access the curriculum, to help him access opportunities in the world around him. Here's another quote that he said. I don't know. Oh, there it is. It's coming up. We are capable of being heroes, but our abilities are as unique as our disabilities. So more people need to look at what we can do and not at what we can't do. And when Diego talked about his like apraxia, which was motor challenges he experiences, and it's often mistaken for lack of knowledge or intelligence, he talks about going up a escalator that's going down. So it's like trying to fight against this, like his body is fighting against this system, and that's the metaphor he uses. And I thought that was really clever as a 9-year-old to explain that. So with that said, that really was the impetus for me to say we need to make changes in our systems and to do better. And I co-founded the Autism and Communication Center. I was very fortunate Cal Lutheran was supportive and said, yes, we will support you in this endeavor. It was established 9 years ago, and the website address is there if any of you want to look up the work that we do. Our mission at ACC is to support inclusive schools and communities based on the notion of presuming competence in autistic individuals. And we want to empower individuals to have access to choose to use alternative forms of communication so that they can realize their full potential as students, as community members, as citizens. And that really leads to a meaningful, full life. That is my goal, and that is the goal of the Autism and Communication Center at Cal Lutheran. This is just some of the images that represent the work that we have done, and Dr. Kripke talked about conferences that she attended. This was one of them where we invited, if the bottom left-hand corner is depicting Emma's right there actually, and a lot of the attendees are non-speaking, minimally speaking, many of which were presenters. In fact, 2 of the presenters who were keynotes were college students who went to Berkeley at the time, UC Berkeley, and one of which went on to do, he's a PhD student now. So we really wanted to highlight and make sure there was a platform for non-speaking autistics to share their stories, not only their successes, but their struggles, their resilience, how folks overcame the challenges that they experienced. And we had a lot of knowledge and wisdom shared. We've also provided professional development opportunities, trainings. We developed our first summer academy, which provided age-appropriate and grade level academics for summer school. It wasn't an official school program, but we wanted to provide, because a lot of these folks are still in segregated special education classrooms when they don't have the proper supports in school systems. So that was one way of us trying to complement what the school is doing, but add to it and to provide those opportunities. We do a lot of camps and workshops. One of the things that Emma was really involved in, which was exciting, was we created this program called a College Bound Academy, and it was a transition program for 3 days where we invited high school students or students who may have already graduated high school and they wanted to go to college. And this is a group, we've had a East Coast version, we've had a West Coast version. During the pandemic, we did online versions of the College Bound Academy. So we've had a lot of college bound graduates who have gone on to college, whether it's community college or 4-year universities. But this was really the first time that a university like Cal Lutheran or like our center was acknowledging and empowering non-speaking and minimally speaking individuals to say, you can go to college. It's absolutely possible. And there are ways to get supports in place so that you can be successful in a university or college setting. And one of the important aspects of this College Bound Academy was having peer mentors who were actually in college and who used letter boards, who used augmentative alternative communication. So Emma's here. She's one of the peer mentors that really shared her experiences, and you're going to see a lovely video at the end. I'll make sure you have time to see that, because that's the most important part of our presentation today. But we have Samuel Capozzi, Emma Cladis, Dylan Barmash, who served as important mentors to the high school students in the group of the College Bound Academy. And in addition to that, we turned their experiences, the peer mentors' experiences, into a journal article in Autism in Adulthood. And that was really great because Emma co-wrote this article with us, along with the other peer mentors, sharing the importance of involving their role in the College Bound Academy transition program. One of the other big projects our center has been involved in is getting a grant from Ability Central for $90,000. In addition to funds that we raised, we created this wonderful training program to help people get access to supporting folks on letterboards and keyboards. We called it Communication for Education. I partnered with Julie Sando and Lisa Quinn, and this whole process was, we took a year to create video modules. We created this communication partner training, and it's done really well. One of the things that we've been able to do is we've trained over 430 teachers, paraeducators, professionals. We've trained 6 or more school teams, and we've reached 22 countries in these online modules. So we're really trying to scale up the capacity of the work we're doing so that folks in non-urban or like major cities have access to this training and can support students in any school in front of them. One of the other fun books that we've been able to publish that Emma was a part of is Leaders Around Me, which has featured 45 autistic authors. And they in their autobiographies, they teach us what it's like to experience autism from their points of view. Some of the folks in this book are college students, some are adults, and they all talk about what it's like to have barriers to communication, how they overcame that, what it's like to regulate their bodies, lots of different perspectives. And the last book I want to share with you is Communication Alternatives in Autism, Perspectives on Typing and Spelling Approaches for the Non-Speaking. One of the things I really love about this book is it shares more in-depth autobiographies of young individuals, but also individuals who didn't get access to communication until their 40s, and two of which were institutionalized in the past. So what that shows is that it's never too late. It's never too late to provide access and the opportunity to learn a new way to communicate. You can be as old as 40, 50, it doesn't matter, but it's an important thing to consider when you have patients, clients, students who may not have a form of communication in front of them. I do start this book with my own narrative of Diego, some of the issues and barriers that we've seen with this form of communication. But the 10 autistic authors speak for themselves. And then the very end of this book, I provide study findings from a research study I did on how professionals, educators can practice best practices in terms of supporting students on letterboards, keyboards, or other AAC devices. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emma again, and she's going to share an amazing video with you that she created with her team. So I'll hand it over to you, Emma.
It is a pleasure to have you see my movie. It's been a good 5 years and many classes since I made this video. I'm a junior in college now and am still enjoying my education. It is slow and steady towards my degree.
I am Emma Cladis. I'm a student at Vanguard University in Costa Mesa, California. I'm an English major there, currently in my 4th year of studies to be a screenwriter. I have 10 classes under my belt and going strong. I'm so glad I'm able to tell my college story. I love to do this time together with you. I hope to give you insight and hope for the future. Good to tell you that my road so far has been a tough one. It is also good to tell you that it has been wonderful and full of good surprising times at college. I think it is imperative to have a good communication partner in order to do your best work and to participate fully in classes and around campus. Being able to type has allowed me to be a part of the community. I get to participate during class, do group work, and hang with friends. The support person needs to be on the hopeful, positive side of things. They need to believe in you and your abilities. They need to be comfortable in their own skin and at college so that when things get tough for you in any way, they can be solid and help. Mary is my communication partner who has helped me so much. She gives me confidence and allows me to have my own voice. It's important for me to have my own voice because I am a human who has lots of great creative ideas. The world needs people to share their ideas in order to have a community with hope. We as typers are here to contribute to those ideas. It is great thinking of myself as a screenwriter and part of the community at Vanguard University. I have a goal to do this great work for God, and screenwriting will be the delivery method. I think when you decide to attend college, you are taking your life into your own hands. You are saying, I can do this. I have interests. I have this difficulty, but it is not going to stop me from having a wonderful, fulfilling life. Typing has allowed me to be able to share with my support team what those interests are. Typing has shown the world that I can do it. I am able to advocate for myself, to express myself and what I need. I am so thankful for the people along my life's journey who have supported me and included me in so many ways. Carrie Kimball, the Disabilities Coordinator at my university, is now one of these support persons. She helps me with choosing my classes and to communicate with professors how to best include me. She believes in me and gives me hope for the future.
At my time here at Vanguard, we've never had a student who was nonverbal before, so this was going to be a very unique experience, and I knew it was going to be very new for me and for Vanguard. And so it's been such a really cool, exciting, different opportunity for us to be able to navigate working with our faculty and supporting Emma the best way we can. And it's been a really neat experience.
I want to share some of the special things college has brought me. It is a place to go with others my age who are all seeking a future. Good energy and ideas swirl around me while I'm on campus. It is amazing how stimulating that can be. With really anything I do as a student, there needs to be a blend of being myself and fitting into campus life. I believe we typers have so much to offer a college campus. We have this new, different way of seeing the world. So the challenge is, how do we give our best so that our teachers and fellow students can open their hearts and minds to us, and at the same time we can get the education we're hoping for. It is magical when you see the lights go on in the professor's eyes or in the eyes of other students. They not only realize that you're smart, but they really see you. They see your ideas and your talents. They come to see you as a peer. I crave opportunities to interact with fellow students regardless of our challenges. These times have been pleasant surprises to me of others not only being kind and open, but also wanting to get to know me. I am a part of a Bible study on campus. It is so great to have like-minded people supporting each other. We talk about school or anything going on in our lives. We share our thoughts about God and things He puts on our hearts. We also pray for each other. Because I am able to communicate, I have these wonderful friendships. It can be frustrating to only type to communicate, and it can go slowly, but most people are patient and don't seem to mind. All of this is a blessing. It just takes a lot of energy. Sometimes I need to stay in bed all day watching videos, and then I'm ready to try again. Another incredibly helpful support to me is the Typing Friendship Group. I've been a part of this group for years. Being with other typers who are challenging the norms of what society says we can and cannot do has helped spur me on. We share our experiences and our hopes and dreams. We celebrate each other's achievements like no others can. We have a full knowledge of what it truly takes each of us to accomplish our goals. We pray when we see setbacks from health or anxiety issues and know these will pass. So I encourage you to find some friends who are like you who type and communicate differently. Meet together to support each other and have fun hanging out too. I hope to communicate with typers and all others to be included fully in this world. As a non-speaker, my life can be difficult, but I will do my best to overcome and use my typing to communicate and really give as much to this world as I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you,
I am
Emma.
Emma
That was
Cladis.
beautiful. That's the end of our presentation. I can't think of a more powerful way to end it than with that video. Thank you to Dr. Kripke, UC San Francisco, for this amazing opportunity to share the work we do and for this amazing award. It's an honor, and we'll turn it over to Q&A. Just wanted to say Emma will be participating, and for those folks who have questions for her, please feel free to ask. Just make sure to provide time for her to type out her responses. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. One question that I have for you, I read the Leaders Among Us book, and there's a saying that you meet one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, everybody's an individual, they're all different. But I was struck by there being a pattern. There were many autobiographies there, but there was also sort of one autobiography. Uh, can you talk a little bit about that? Are you seeing any patterns in the life trajectories of typers and spellers?
Thank you. Yes. And anything Emma would like to answer as well, feel free to, but I'll just start. And it's been a while. It's that book came out 6 years ago. So I can't believe it's been that long. But the sort of the narrative, the larger narrative, right, of that book is we're seeing a lot of folks talk about in the beginning of their life being underestimated, experiencing apraxia, and that very simply put, and I'm happy to, Dr. Kripke, you could probably explain it better than I can, but just, the motor challenges that may come with apraxia of speech or apraxia of the whole body. So it could be gross motor planning challenges, fine motor planning challenges, and that leading to people making assumptions about intelligence or lack of intelligence. So when we see these patterns of not being included because of lack of access to communication, and then once the communication is introduced into their lives, a whole door of opportunities opens for them. And it's really exciting to see the success that comes with that, but continued challenges, right? They're still contending with sensory issues and other issues that come with being a non-speaking, minimally speaking autistic. But it's really, really cool to see the narratives sort of build onto each other.
If I may, I'm John Takayama, and so hello and congratulations. And so these are questions that came through the Q&A. Any clues how Diego or various people learn to read or spell, and clues that parents or teachers might notice this early on?
That's a great question. For Diego, I noticed that the clues I saw as a parent was one day he put, he was like 2 years old or 3 years old, and we were visiting his grandma, and if you remember those alphabet tiles that go on a refrigerator, the magnets, they were all over the place. And we looked over, he had been spending time in front of the refrigerator for 5 minutes. He had put all of them in order. And I thought, oh my gosh, like he knows the ABCs. So that was the first thing. And it was like a very simple thing, but it was his way of just like sharing, that he knew the alphabet. And then he started putting words together through those kinds of magnets. And one day in a therapy session, he put together the word hug. And then he came, it was a very huge surprise to me. He was like 4 or 5. He came over and gave me a hug. So I didn't know what he knew, and so then I saw him pointing at words and following along when we were reading. But someone introduced the term hyperlexic to me when he was that young, and that, he was reading a lot more than what we thought. So I think kind of looking for clues like that, but also not making the assumption that they can't read. I think introducing and exposing and providing the opportunity to read age-appropriate books and stories is always better to presume competence than not to, because then if you don't, then you're limiting their opportunities to engage with that kind of literature and curriculum.
Thank you very much. And I'm wondering, Emma, if I can ask the same question for you in terms of how you started to spell and to write, type.
Yes, I think we just listen and learn and then figure out how to show we are smart.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I do think that there's literacy training that autistic people learn to read the same way other people do, by watching Elmo and Sesame Street, and by being read to, and by letter games, and all the same ways that all kids learn.
Yes. It's about providing those opportunities and the exposure, I think, continuing to do that. Yeah.
Another question is your training program primarily for those with autism, or other disabilities are allowed in your program, since we know that that regardless of diagnosis, all people have overlapping issues and would benefit from the prognosis being made within the autism community? Thank you, Emma, for your impactful work.
That's great. So we definitely don't limit it to autism, but I would say the majority of the clients or students that we serve are autistic. But I do know practitioners who support folks with Down syndrome, I believe Angelman syndrome, and there's been some other rare diagnoses that I can't remember even the name of them, to be honest. But we do include. I would say over 90% are autistic, but that's not to say we don't open it up. We want to provide the support to whoever could benefit from it, for sure. Yeah.
So another question from the Q&A. Do a lot of typers need someone else to hold the tablet, or is it very individual?
That's a great question. Yeah, there's kind of a progression of I guess skills, not only from the communication partner side, but also from the individual, the AAC user. So when you have when you first begin, you are holding whether it's a stencil board with the alphabet on it, or choice board, or the letter board, which is laminated. And then you kind of move up this ladder, this language ladder, where it becomes more open-ended. You might be using a keyboard. But a lot of our students or our clients or our AAC users, they do work toward autonomy in a way if they can, but most of the time we do hold the letter board, the keyboard, and that is because number one, some of our folks are movers and shakers, so they're moving around, and you're kind of trying to make sure that the letterboard or the keyboard is in their visual field. And I've seen practitioners literally like follow a child around the room, with the keyboard, and just to keep the communication going. But you're providing support, and for Diego, he actually started with physical hand on his back, and that grounded him, so that putting a hand on his back or the back of his shoulder also helped ground him. Over time, we're working on him holding the letterboard, and he's wanting to hold the keyboard as much as possible. But there are some days this is a part of like sensory dysregulation or apraxia, where every day is different for an autistic person. They might feel very regulated and they can use a keyboard on a stand, but other days you might need to provide more support as a communication partner. And Emma, I don't know if you want to add anything to this comment.
It's individual, but at first most typers need support and work toward independence.
Very good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there an advantage to letterboard over regular keyboard or a AAC device that might be faster?
So yeah, my experience in watching many folks come through our center is that and including Diego, right? The letterboard seems to be he's faster on the letterboard. I think there's less distractions for him when he's not using an iPad or a keyboard. So he's able to point and just get through the sentences quicker. Now he's able to type more quickly on a keyboard because he's had years of practice with that. But we do see that when we move up this ladder of like communication skills, typically students do well starting off with a letterboard, and then over time they kind of graduate to a keyboard. But everybody is different again. And Emma, do you want to add anything to that thought?
It depends on the day for me which one I use.
Thank you.
And another question, what role, if any, has sign language played in this process and your research?
That's a great question. So, and I get asked this quite a bit. And what I found with the participants at our center is many of them have tried sign language as a mode of communication, but the fine motor planning aspect makes it very difficult for, if the person experiences apraxia or fine motor challenges. So while it might be successful in the beginning stages of sign language when you're learning simple signs, we often see that it doesn't go beyond that very often to full sign language. I've actually only met one speller / typer who uses sign language with their mom in complete phrases, I would say. So that was really cool to see, because I do encourage multimodal communication. So if you can type one way or another, it's all communication. It's all access to sharing your thoughts and feelings and knowledge. But I don't see it across the board because of that reason.
I love to do sign when I can. It helps my speech come on.
Do you mind repeating that, either Emma or Emma's mom?
Yeah, she said, I love to do sign when I can. It helps my speech come on.
Awesome.
Again, it depends. It's pretty rudimentary and big gross motor, but it does help you say certain words. Yeah, there's a connection there somehow.
Very good. Thank you.
And one more question. What is your response to the American Speech and Language Hearing Association's warning against rapid prompting or spelling to communicate? Is there a concern for facilitator bias?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak from my personal experience. I do think that that statement is very, it's coming from a very limited perspective. And I think there's a long history that we have to consider of that statement really is drawing from one of the original forms of typing communication methods, which is facilitated communication. And there's a lot more physical support that happens there, where some folks are providing support at the wrist or the hand, and then they fade out, eventually fade out that support over time. That's the goal. Now, that said, there was controversies about the level of influence that the communication partner was providing during that process, and that level of scrutiny and criticism has spilled over into RPM, which is rapid prompting method, or S2C, spelling to communicate. And there hasn't been a lot of great research supporting on either end, I would say there needs to be more research on this. But I do think what I've seen is when people have good practice and they practice like a good ethical with fidelity practices using letterboard and keyboard, we're seeing really wonderful original thoughts from the students. I acknowledge in the book that I wrote that there is potential for influence. I do acknowledge that it's possible that a communication partner can influence output. And that's what we have to not only recognize, acknowledge, but work toward making sure that that influence is reduced and eliminated as much as possible, so that we want to hear the original thoughts and feelings and words coming from the communicator themselves. So I do think that it's important to acknowledge what is possible in terms of limitations for any communication, but we always influence each other when we're talking as speaking people. We're reading off of each other, not only the words, but our energy and nonverbal communication, our face. So it's never, communication is never done in isolation, and people do sort of feed off of each other during that process. So I think there's a hugely limited perspective from ASHA. And what we're seeing is speech language pathologists who are adopting these methods are doing so behind closed doors because they believe in this method and they want to support typers and spellers, but they're doing it without the support of ASHA. So I think if we could work together with them, it would be really lovely to move forward so that we're not barring access for students who would benefit hugely from having access in schools and in therapy sessions to typing and spelling methods.
Thank you. And Emma, I don't know if you want the last
I'm
word.
not worried about them. The typing community will grow stronger and show we are in here doing our own typing.
For sure. That's right. That's right. The answer is people living fabulous lives and in growing numbers. I think that's the main answer. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank you, Emma.